we are back to the study of the Spirit's book. In the past couple of weeks, you studied selfishness and you studied passions with Jussara. And the last two items of book 3, the chapter Moral Perfection, we are going to address. Each item is one question. We start on question 918. They are extensive questions. We are going to try to go over them, discuss a little bit, talk a little bit, so we can all learn and understand better. We are not going to go in book 4 because I think we'd rather start book 4 at the beginning of a study. So we are going to study these last two questions that are, pretty comprehensive, and we can talk about it, discuss it more, go a little deeper. The second one, which is self-knowledge. It's also that has a long message from St. Augustine. We can talk about him also. So the first one is characteristics of a virtuous person. The original in French and in Portuguese is the characteristics of a good person. Virtuous and good can be both used in the sense that is used here. It's not wrong to use virtuous or good. If you want to, to go deeper into the philosophical differences, it is said that virtuous is more ethical and moral, and good is more moral. In terms of the if you want to go deeper into how it's used in the lexicon, in the English lexicon, but they are interchangeable. They can both be used. Okay, I just want to bring, because if someone is looking at the original that is written characteristics of a good person. Okay. So, Philip.
Yes.
Thank you.
918. Are there signs indicating that humans have achieved the progress that will raise them in the spirit hierarchy? The elevation of incarnate spirits is demonstrated by the compliance of all their actions in the physical life with God's law, and by their understanding of spiritual life. Truly virtuous individuals are those who practice the law of justice, love, and charity in their purest form. If people question their consciences in regard to their actions, they will ask themselves whether they have violated the law or done anything wrong, whether they have done all the good in their power, whether no one has reason to complain about them, and whether they have done to others everything that they would wish others to do to them. When people are overwhelmed by feelings of charity and kindness for all, they do good for the sake of doing good, without looking for a reward, and they sacrifice their interests for justice. They are kind, compassionate, and humane to all, because they view everyone as their brothers and sisters, regardless of race or creed. If God has given them power and wealth, they consider them deposits confided to them for the general good. They are not arrogant because they know that what God has given, God can take away at any time. When society makes people dependent on them, they treat them with kindness and compassion as equals before God. They use authority to elevate them morally rather than crushing them with their pride. They are indulgent in relation to others' weaknesses, knowing that they too need indulgence, and remembering Christ's words, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. They are not vindictive and follow the example of Jesus, forgiving all offenses, as they know that they will only obtain forgiveness as they forgive others and themselves. Finally, they respect the rights of others as established by the law of nature, as they would want others to respect their rights.
Okay, you read this and you think, I think, how far am I from all of this? The first thing, most people know this passage from the gospel, right? The good person, right? And most people think that because a lot of people, especially in Brazil, as I found out recently, they really read the gospel before they read everything else, right? Some people read only the gospel and never read the Spirit's book. So they think that it appeared first on the gospel, but actually Kardec brought in here in the Spirit's book their characteristics as answered by the spirits of a virtuous person that is later developed and studied in more depth in the gospel according to Spiritism in this chapter that they talk the good person and then the good spiritist, right? The two chapters in the gospel that talk about this item. Again, one thing that Jesus brought to us is the change from the negative phrase to the positive phrase, changed from do not do to others what you don't want others to do to you, to do unto others what you want others to do unto you. So it's an active proposition, right? Because it's very easy not to do to others. You are not really doing anything. You are just avoiding causing harm to others, right? So it's the concept of going and isolating yourself from society. You are not causing damage to anyone, but you are not helping you in any way because you are not progressing. So Jesus brings to us the notion of be good to others, do to others what you want others to do unto you, right? So this is the natural law, right? And the spirits tell us here, the answer from the spirits is very, very short, right? Is the compliance of all our actions in the physical life with God's law and their understanding of spiritual life. This is what demonstrates our progress as incarnate spirits, right? So we are here to progress morally and intellectually. And here they give us both aspects, right? By being good to others, we are elevating ourselves morally, right? By learning, understanding of our spiritual life, we are progressing intellectually, right? Because it's knowledge. Acquiring knowledge, we progress intellectually. So this is what the spirits bring to us. And then Kardec goes in a very comprehensive explanation, right? Starting again, the last law that we studied in the moral laws, which is the law of justice, love, and charity. Remembering that I mentioned this, right, in the original Jewish language, justice, love, and charity is only one word, right? It's not really one word, but there is one word that means all three of them together. Yes, which is very interesting. Yeah. All our Christianity traditions, the origin is in the Jewish tradition, right? We bring everything from the Jewish. We build upon what the Jewish tradition has brought to us. So what Kardec is telling us here, whatever we do, we should ask ourselves if we have violated the law, if we have done anything wrong, if we have done all the good in our power. And again, this is very important. It's an active proposition on how to live our lives, not avoiding trouble, but facing opportunities of actively doing good, practicing charity. Without charity, there is no salvation. That's how this chapter we went in the next question. And when we reflect on our actions that we should do on a daily basis, which is what St. Augustine is going to tell us in the next question, we have to reflect if we have done all the good in our power, if anyone has any reason to complain about us, and if we really act according to the divine and natural law, again, according to our limitations, right? We don't fully understand the natural laws. They are still beyond our capacity of fully understanding. But what we want to understand, we need to try to follow it as much as we can. So again, we are not responsible for mistakes we make on things we don't know, right? That's how we progress. We learn, we make mistakes, we learn from our mistakes, we progress. There is no serious consequences from doing mistakes on our path of learning and evolving. The problem is when we start repeating the mistakes. The problem is when we do things that we know consciously or unconsciously that is wrong, and we do anyway. That's when we create what the Eastern religions call karma, and in Spiritism we call cause and consequence, right? The habit of doing it is what is going to make it become part of who we are. We have to make an effort in the beginning, right? We are not charitable by nature. That's something we need to acquire. We need to train ourselves. When we are fighting to overcome our imperfections, we need to fight them on a daily basis, on a regular basis. It's not that I don't have any patience, so I'm deciding that starting tomorrow I'll have all the patience in the world. It's not going to happen. If I don't have it, it's going to take work to acquire it, an effort every day, challenging myself to improve, falling, starting all over again. That's the work that we have to do to acquire these virtues that we still do not have. And then, as Kardec says, when we are overwhelmed by feelings of charity and kindness for all, we just have to look ourselves. We're not overwhelmed by feelings of charity and kindness for all. We could be having feelings of charity and kindness for some around us, friends, even people we hear in the news that are struggling. We feel this compassion, but for all means for all those that we 100% disagree. We don't have it. We cannot pretend that we have it. So to get there, it's an exercise. And to do that, to do this exercise, we need to do it, try to do every day on a regular basis. Otherwise, we're not going to get there. To sacrifice our own interests for justice, doing good without looking for a reward. That's what we are doing here, is learning what we have to do. Then the second part is trying to make it become part of our life. It probably will take some reincarnations to get there, but we have to start somewhere, right? And the first step we are doing it. We know that we have to do it. We are learning about it. We are becoming more and more conscious of the necessity of doing it. And then it's just a matter of putting in practice on our daily lives for a very long time, right? Because we study about selfishness, passions that you study with Sarah in the last couple of weeks, right? We are still, we have selfishness, and it's very difficult to sacrifice our own interests for the overall good, right? We're not there yet, most of us. So the target is to, like Kardec says here, to view everyone as brothers and sisters, to be compassionate and humane to all, regardless of race or creed. And again, it involves here those that have different beliefs and behave in a manner that we absolutely do not agree, right? Can we see them as brothers and sisters? It's hard. We're not there, right? But that's the objective. The spirits have to show us, and Kardec, they have to show us the light at the end of the tunnel, right? Where we have to look, because they, it doesn't make any sense for them to say to us, well, if you get half there, you're good. No, it's not. We need to get to the end. If we are better tomorrow than we are today, they tell us that's the true spiritist, is the one that we are each day is better than they were before. But the objective is to get there, right? So what we do with what we have, that's the next thing Kardec talks about here, talk to us about here. If God have given power and wealth, we consider them to be deposits and not our right or our forgot the other word. So we have this for the general good. How we use our power and how we use our wealth, we have to use them to benefit those in need around us. And that extends beyond family, which is, you see a lot of people, wealthy people say, well, I'm saving because I need to provide for my family. We have to go beyond the family. We have to go beyond the obvious ones, because criminals provide for their family also, right? For their families. So the sign of a true charitable person is the one that tries to help and assist all those in need as much as possible. And again, if you don't have power or wealth, we have other resources, our time, our other things that we have. So that's what Kardec tells us, to understand our responsibilities that come with power and wealth. They are much more serious than those that come without them, right? If you have no power, it's very difficult for you to use something you don't have on others. But also, Kardec talks to us about the position we find ourselves in society, right? If we are, we have people under our authority, how to treat them with kindness and compassion as equals before God. Of course, kindness and compassion and fairness. Someone works for us, they are supposed to do their job. It's our responsibility to make sure they do their job in the right way, right? It's not to be complacent with those that work for us. It's to be fair, kind, and have compassion, understanding their own needs and the necessity of them to fulfill their duties. If we are on the other way, if we work for someone, we have to do our job to the best of our abilities, regardless of what we are told or how the boss behaves towards us. We provide them with respect. We provide them with understanding, acceptance, and we do our job, understanding our place, that we are there to help in whatever we're doing. Again, very noble and elevated concepts that we are not there, and we need to work on improving ourselves. But that's the objective, right? So Kardec talks to us, we should remember Christ's words, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, right? We cannot accuse anyone if we are not ourselves, if we are not clean of those ourselves. And if we are not going to accuse anyone because we are beyond that already, right? When we reach a level that we could theoretically throw the first stone, we wouldn't throw the first stone anyway, because we reached the level of evolution that wouldn't allow us ourselves to do it. So we are never going to throw, we should never throw stones, right? Respect for the rights of others, as established by the law of nature, as we would like others to respect our rights. And especially where we are living today in the society, which there is so little respect for the rights of others, or abuses for people of their own rights, we need to be reminded of the necessity of respecting the rights of others. And again, respecting the rights of others as long as the others are not causing harm to society, right? Because then we need to, we as a society need to control it. But someone expressing their own personal views without causing any direct harm to anyone, that's where we need to respect. Again, when someone goes on social media and starts accusing people and causing harm to others through social media, that we need to find a way to improve these abilities that people have to go, and especially nowadays in social media, that people crush the life of others, especially young people, right? So that's not what they're saying here. But, you know, that's you. An example, a very simple example here. Someone comes to you and says, I don't believe in God. There's nothing you can say that will make me believe in God. We have to respect. It's their right. It's not harming anyone if someone doesn't believe in God, if they're not using their no belief to cause harm. So that's what they're saying here. We cannot be trying to impose our views on people that have their own views. As long there is no harm done, we have to respect, right? Again, where is the fine line between respecting and accepting someone's views, or when this person's view is causing harm to others? It's a fine line, and we have to try to understand the differences. But we have to understand that we have to respect. You know, the example I gave is a very simple example to give us an idea how, you know, sometimes some people say, I don't believe in God, and we are shocked. And we start, you know, look at the universe. Who created the universe? It was by chance. And you enter into a discussion that the person has no interest in having this discussion with you. So we're wasting our time. We're using our energy on something that is not productive. And we're showing lack of respect for the person's right to believe in whatever he or she wants, right? So that's it. I spoke a lot on this first one. And I almost speak a little bit also.
Oh, this is not much to add here. The thing is, Kardec asked humans in the plural, which tells me that it's talking about the human race or the spirit kind or not, right? And he asks if there is any signs that we have upgrade ourselves, right? Like at least one level up. When I read this, what is the first? It seems to me the Kardec talks somebody who upgrade themselves 3, 4, 5 levels above what we are right now. You know, it's go slow, you have to go from, step by step. It seems to me that by the answer, it's not one step up. It's several steps up. And the question that I have is, will you conquer those little steps to get to this while still on planet Earth, who's still in the next phase in the planet of regeneration? And I still think it's still little. We're going to go beyond that yet.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we are going to get to this level in a world of regeneration.
Another time, spiritual collective.
Yeah.
Humans as a human race, not talking about individuals. There are individuals that will reach.
Yes.
We're talking about the human race
Yeah,
collective.
No, not in the world of regeneration.
No, that makes sense.
Because if we as a human race reach this point, it'll be a happy world. It's not going to be a world of regeneration.
That's
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But again, I agree with what you said. Kardec shoots very high here. But he has to, right?
Yes.
He has to show us the objective. Cannot be half-baked.
Absolutely.
Right. Right.
My point is, don't despair, people. We have time.
Yeah.
No, but I'm glad that you mentioned that, because when you read this, it's kind of, you brought it down to this level. That's my point. You brought
Yes.
it down to this level. So, okay, this is what it is. It's a few steps ahead, but this is, so you brought it more kind of, you brought it down to earth. That's my point. That's the expression, you brought it down to earth.
Yeah. But, if you think of it, right, how are you going to love all humanity if you are not capable of loving those around you in your own family? So you have to start somewhere, right? Right? Because that there is, in some studies of Spiritism, you talk about that. People that try to save the world when they cannot even save themselves in their own family. Right? We have to start somewhere, right? And go from there. And that's what's the idea here, is to give us the objective, right? We have to start.
Yeah, direction.
Yeah. Okay. Right? Self-knowledge. And that's a very good question also. And I heard something today that I found very interesting, that we all know, but said in clear words is it's very good. A lot of people think that you study, the objective of studying Spiritism is to improve your self-knowledge, and it's not. It's self-knowledge is the objective of studying Spiritism, right? When you see a lot of people that from Spiritism goes to self-help books, right? Yeah. Which self-help books are for you to improve the knowledge about yourself, right? And Spiritism actually exists for our moral improvement, right? But we only get to our moral improvement if we have self-knowledge, right? So it is a very important step, but it is not the final objective, right? And I thought that was very interesting, because sometimes we forget that, right? We talk so much about self-knowledge that sometimes we forget that that's not the end game. The end game, no, that's the middle game. We have to get there, because if we don't know about ourselves, how can we improve more? If I don't think I am selfish, I'm never going to work on being less selfish, and I'm not going to improve morally, right? So you have to get there, but that's not the end game. I thought that was very interesting to learn. to be reminded, actually. Okay? All right, Philip.
What is the most effective method of guaranteeing self-improvement and resisting the attraction of wrongdoing? A philosopher of antiquity once said, "Know thyself." We fully admit the wisdom of this saying, but self-knowledge is precisely what is most difficult to achieve. How can we acquire it? Do what I myself used to do during my life on earth. At the end of each day, I would assess my conscience, review everything that I had done, and I would ask myself whether I had failed in some duty, whether someone might have reason to complain of me. It was thus that I arrived at knowing myself and in seeing what there was in me that needed to be reformed. If you review all your actions of the day every evening, asking yourself whether you have done good or bad, and praying for enlightenment from God and your guardian angel, you would acquire great strength for self-improvement because God would assist you. Ask yourself these questions. What you have done, what was your aim, whether you have done anything that you would find fault for in another, or whether you have done anything that you would be ashamed to admit. Also ask yourself, if God called me into the spirit life at this moment in time, where nothing is hidden, would I dread seeing anyone? Review what you may have done, first against God, second against your neighbor, and lastly against yourself. The answers to these questions will either settle your conscience or reveal some wrong that you will have to remedy.
Sorry, Philip.
Thank you very much. Self-knowledge is the key to individual improvement. However, you may ask, how does one judge oneself? Aren't all human beings subject to the illusion of arrogance, which diminishes their flaws in their own eyes and makes it possible to find excuses for them? Misers think that they are merely practicing economy and foresight, while proud individuals think their pride is dignity. This is true, but there is a way of proceeding that cannot deceive you. When you are in doubt regarding any of your actions, ask yourself what your judgment would be if it were done by another. If you would find cause for reproach in another, it cannot be less reprehensible when done by you, because God's justice is universal for all. Try to discover what others think, and do not overlook the opinion of your enemies, because they have no interest in disguising the truth. And God often places them in your life to serve as a mirror, to warn you in a manner more frank than that of a friend. Those who are firmly resolved in achieving self-improvement must review their conscience in order to uproot their evil inclinations, just as they uproot weeds from their gardens. Every night they should settle their moral accounts for the day, just as businessmen account for their profits and losses. They can rest assured that the former will be a much more profitable operation than the latter. Those who can say that the balance is in their favor may sleep peacefully and await their return to the spirit life without fear. Ask yourself clear and precise questions, and do not hesitate to ask them often. You should devote a few minutes to guaranteeing happiness that will last forever. Do you not work every day so that you may rest when you have reached old age? Is this rest not the object of your desires, the aim that helps you endure your current hardships and deprivation? What comparison is there between a few days of rest impaired by the weaknesses of the body and the endless rest that awaits the virtuous? Is the latter not worth a slight effort? I know that many will say, the present is certain, the future is uncertain. But this is precisely the error that we must erase from our minds by showing you your future is in such a way as to leave no shred of doubt. This is why, having begun to
Lost?
I'm lost. I know what you're saying.
Having begun by producing phenomena designed
To grab your attention by appealing to your senses, we now give you the moral teachings that each of you must in turn spread. This is why we have dedicated the Spirit's book.
dictated.
Dictated?
The Spirit's book, and Augustine. Okay, then the comment from Kardec.
We commit many faults that go unnoticed. If we followed the advice of St. Augustine and examined our conscience more often, we would see how many times we have failed without even realizing it, due to our lack of scrutinizing the nature and reason behind our actions. The interrogative form is more precise than a maxim that often is not applied. It requires yes or no responses that leave no room for interpretation. These are the personal arguments, and by the sum of their responses, we can estimate the sum of good and evil within us.
Okay, so again, a very important question. Beautiful comment by St. Augustine, answer by St. Augustine. But first, the question is the most effective method. A philosopher of antiquity, which is Socrates, once said, know thyself. This phrase, know thyself, is attributed to Socrates, but in actuality, it's probably not from Socrates, because it was written in the Oracle of Delphi in Old Greece, that Socrates went there when he asked who's the wisest man on earth, and the oracle answered Socrates, and he immediately said, all I know is that I know nothing, right? Which is the sign of a wise person, right? So Socrates was the one that disseminated the phrase "know thyself." They are not sure if he came with the phrase himself. Okay.
It is my understanding that he also said that an unexamined life is not worth living.
Yes. Yes.
No.
Yeah, when there are some other very interesting passages.
I think that's a little bit too much, but
Yeah.
that's what I read. An unexamined life is not worth living. Wow.
When he was in prison, right? That his wife went to visit him, and they allowed him to leave, and he said, "No, I won't leave." And she said, "Why don't you fight for your freedom? Aren't you innocent?" And he said, "Would you prefer that I would be guilty?" You know, so a lot of wise words. But then we have St. Augustine here talking to us, and again, this, when you talk, you listen to Spiritist lectures when you talk about self-knowledge. This phrase 919 is a phrase, question 919 is a question very commonly used, because it's very important when St. Augustine talks to us about examining our daily lives through the lenses of what we have done with our day. examine all our actions and ask ourselves if we could have done something different, right? Tells us to pray every night, to ask God for enlightenment, and our guardian angel, again, St. Augustine, one of the spirits responsible for the codification, as he mentions here by the end, right? He and the group of spirits that were responsible for bringing the Spirits book. So one thing that he brings that is very important, right? A phrase that we hear here and there, right? We should live our lives like today is the last day. Because if we go back to the spiritual world, what are we going to find? Are we going to feel any regret, guilt, or anything like that, right?
Yeah, there's a phrase that you got to live your life like if it was your life out there on earth, because eventually it will.
Yeah, I heard that also.
Yeah,
One day you'll be right.
I just want to mention also that it says here, at the end of each day, I would accept my conscience, review everything that I've done, and I would ask myself whether I have failed in some duty, so and so. I just want to bring to your attention that this is actually the step 10 in self-help.
Yeah.
Continue to take a personal inventory, and when you were wrong, come and admit it. So every night you have to sit down and just read what it says there. You have to repeat the day.
Again,
Interesting,
it's
isn't it?
the truth. The truth is everything.
Remember, self-help books are spiritual books.
Yes. Yes.
What is it? Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, I found it fascinating.
Also in the priest Damiano in the book, he mentions something about that at the end of the day, he goes over his day, see what he did, what he could have done better, and then to get better the next day. So it's actually it's the perfect recipe for self-improvement. It's just that you read this and you know this, and we don't do this.
You don't practice.
We don't practice it. Yeah, in the end, that's the problem, right? We know that. We read that many times, we're reading this for the 8th time studying it, right? And I still struggle to do it, right?
It's because you know that the picture is not good. It's not gonna see that bad movie again.
Yeah. But, again, I think that's what St. Augustine tells us here. If God called me into the spirit life in this moment in time where nothing is hidden, would I dread seeing someone, right? Or see anyone, or review some, have some reasons to regret. And most spirits that go back to, most individuals go back to the spiritual world, they have regrets. They have, those that end up in what we call the lower zones, the suffering areas, right? What's the characteristic of lower zones? Suffering spirits that have regrets, that have guilt. They're not evil spirits per se. It's just spirits that have regret, have, a lot of things, and they keep themselves connected through these mental vibrations, right? Which is the majority of us here on earth, right? So can we change that? The recipe is here. It cannot be simpler than that or harder than that, right? In the end, that's the reality, right?
Well, I think that's then, and it's committed because actually people, most of us lack knowledge of ourselves. Like you said, the more you know, the more responsible you become.
Yes.
Understand that lack of knowledge of ourselves. That was like, remember what the biblical line that it says, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they're doing.
Yes, what Jesus said, right?
That Jesus said that,
Yeah.
it's true.
The cross.
Well, in our dimension, we don't, sometimes we don't know what we do.
Yeah.
We don't know what we're doing because lack of self-knowledge.
and especially those who were crucifying him, right? They clearly didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, they got that. They did really not know what they were doing. They were not being exposed to even to the Christianity that Christ was presenting at that time.
Yeah,
So they did not know what they were doing.
yeah.
But after that,
And
Yeah.
they claim ignorance.
No, we cannot. Now we cannot.
and sometimes I don't want to face the truth. I don't want to face reality.
It's, you know, it's still in our nature to try to hide from some of our
I think
ourselves.
that's
Right?
questions in our nature because I could say one thing because of my nature while I was drinking, and then I do believe that we have to I don't call it faith, I call it trust. That there, I do believe that there are forces out here helping us.
Of course.
Definitely, I believe that.
Yeah, there's the question is if we listen to them or not. That's our problem. Right?
Are you willing just to surrender and ask for help? Be humble enough to say, I can do this. I can find no more.
And you know, in Spiritism, we are even more responsible because we know that we have spirits around us, right? It's not something that it's mentioned and we don't know if it's true or not. No, we know.
That is true. And that's
Yeah.
really emphasized here. That's
Yeah.
That's-
So we cannot claim ignorance,
Yeah.
unfortunately, right? We are ignorant of a lot of things yet because we are far from being perfect. We're imperfect spirits, but some things, you know, the spiritual help, we cannot claim ignorance. It's there for us and we know it. It's just a matter of us accepting it, opening ourselves to it or not, right? And that's you know, in the end, the self-knowledge, what St. Augustine is teaching us here, it's very important, right? It's something that we should try to read more frequently.
Also in self-help, if you want to make a way, self-help, step 4. Step 4, because they based on 12 steps. Step 4 is that you got to know yourself. You have to have a list of questions to answer from childhood all the way to up.
And
You know that and you have to write.
Kardec gives a very good recipe here. Is you have to ask yourself questions that can be answered by yes or no.
By what?
By yes or no. Because with that, you have a clear understanding of where you are. You know, you saw some beggar in the street. Could I have helped that beggar? It's not maybe, it's yes or no. If you didn't, why? Right? And then you analyze, right? Like when Chico was late for work, right? And that this lady comes to him and then stops him and, Chico, can you help me? And he turns to her and tells her, sorry, I'm very late for work. And then he walks a little bit and Emmanuel calls him and where are you going? And he said, I'm late for work. And Emmanuel says, you're already late, so go and back and help. So, of course. Yeah.
It's funny.
Yeah, so he goes back and the lady is suffering from some problem, and Emmanuel tells Chico to gives her the recipe for what she has to buy the medicine, and she says, I don't have money to buy the medicine. And then Emmanuel tells Chico, write in a piece of paper and tell her to take the paper and day by day eat a little piece of the paper, right? So Chico tells her to do that. She takes the paper with her, right? And saves the paper and then leaves. And Emmanuel tells him she's going to be healed with our spiritual medicine that we are going to provide every time she eats a piece of paper and remembers that she's being treated, right? And then Chico walks, and then Emmanuel tells him, look back. And he looks at her, and there is a torrent of light coming out from her in his direction
Wow.
of thankful, of recognition, gratitude. Yes. So, again, this is Chico, right? But it's it's a beautiful story for us to remember that sometimes we have to, when people are really in need, we have to make time for that. Because maybe that's our a way of being healed, and we don't know, right? By helping others, we are healing ourselves, and we don't know it. And if we don't do it, right? So again, going back to the yes or no, right? Direct questions. When we ask ourselves what we did during the day, we should ask direct questions that can be answered by yes or no. Was I charitable today? Half of the day yes, half of the day no. So it's no, right? And that's very hard in the end, very hard. Because most of our care questions to ourselves, the answer will be no. And if we start doing it every day, those no's will start to become more and more yeses. And that's how we are changing. And that's how we are changing. But they should be no in the first, a lot of no's in the first. Because then we can look at ourselves. If we answer everything yes, we are in the wrong place on earth. And we are not in the wrong place. Yeah. Right? So again, worth reading again, worth studying. It's a very beautiful answer from St. Augustine. And every answer in the Spirit's book that is signed deserves our special attention, because whenever Kardec gives a message from a spirit that is signed, and I think you read from Fenelon last week, right? Which is also very beautiful and important. And towards the next, the end of the book, we are going to have beautiful messages from Paul of Tarsus, St. Vincent de Paul, and Plato towards the end of the book, which are very important messages and beautiful ones that we're going to study also with care. Okay. Any additional comments? That's it for us today. Next week we start book 4, which is Hope and Consolation. It's the last book of the Spirit's book. We are going to talk about earthly joys and sorrows, which is what we are doing here in this life, and future joys and sorrows, what awaits for us when we are back in the spiritual world. Okay?
The first 9:20.
Any final comments, questions? Okay. Elmo, can you do our final prayer?